What's going on, y'all? Shout out to the LDBC. It's your boy Fight Critic. I tried to do this all in like 5 minutes, but it wasn't going to happen. So I'm gonna have to break these videos up into probably 3 parts to talk about a pound for pound list. So of course, pound for pound is always very, very subjective. It's about people who feel as though who is the best fighter regardless of weight. Now, in order to do that, you have to also look at, well, what was the purpose for pound when it was originally, a concept that was presented to the sport of boxing. And it was a way for people to gauge who would be the best fighter regardless of weight that was not a heavyweight. Because at the time, you know, throughout history, the heavyweight title is considered to be the main prize in boxing, and that's why a lot of guys, they put so much emphasis on being heavyweight champion of the world. It's not much of a accomplishment nowadays because of how sports is. The heavyweight title doesn't mean the same thing that it does in 2020 the way it did in 1980. And because of that, we've seen more and more people look into the pound for pound list to find, well, who is the best fighter in sport? And for me, I feel like I probably have the best pound for pound list. Not because I watch every single fight that happens across every single division, but because the ability to gauge talent and to be able to have a strong track record for who are these guys, how well do they fight, and what are they planning on doing, and where are they at the current sports landscape is super important. I try to factor in things such as your weight class, what have you done lately in the sport, and your overall resume. And there are many situations in which a guy could have a strong resume, but if his last couple of fights are not, the kind of fights that are good, and somebody else is kind of, not have the lacking resume, but they fought 3 difficult fights that they were in very, very close situations and they win, I'm more inclined to put the guy who has the stronger momentum over the guy with the stronger resume because of the lapse and what have you guys done lately. That still keeps them both in my list, but I'm going to value one guy ahead of the other. And for this type of list, I've made 3 honorable mentions, guys that I feel that could enter the list at any point in time this year. And then, of course, I have my top 10. Now, when it comes to things such as, how do I feel about my top 10 list? I feel like it's strong. I feel like it's also very able to be critiqued, which is important. And at the same time, I believe that regardless of what happens this year, I think this list will stay consistent to where it is now. So we'll get into the honorable mentions in this video, and then I will cut to the top 10 through 5 in a second video, and then I'll go into a top 5 to 1. But first and foremost, let's start with the honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is Juan Francisco Estrada, who is currently set to fight a rematch against Roman Gonzalez in a unified super flyweight title fight. Roman Gonzalez, Cocolatito, if he is able to beat Juan Francisco Estrada, I don't see how people leave him out of the pound for pound list again. And granted, his spot, a couple of years back when he was considered the best fighter in the sport may have been overhyped. I thought he was really good, maybe not the best fighter in the sport good, but I thought he was top 3 and at worst top 5. And for Estrada, I think if he beats Roman Gonzalez, I put him into my list easily, especially considering that I had Sor Rungvisai in my top 5 for a really long time when I made these lists on a consistent basis. So Estrada is my first honorable mention. My second honorable mention is Vasyl Lomachenko, and Vasyl is out of my top 10 just simply because he didn't really fight the type of fight that you would expect against Teofimo Lopez, but more importantly, Vasyl Lomachenko has made so many excuses for that loss. So for me, it doesn't look like he's ready to go back into a challenge again if he's making all these excuses. And for that, I don't expect him to be taking on a difficult challenger. I'd love to be wrong about it, but for now, I'm going to keep him out of my top 10. If he does take on a top 5 guy in the division or win a title again, I could see him back in my list, but for now, he's out. And my last honorable mention is Gervonta Davis. Davis has the most upside out of all these honorable mentions. And the reason why he has the most upside is because he is the fresher fighter out of both Lomachenko and Estrada, but he doesn't have the opposition to put him in my list just yet. Granted, a fight against Ryan Garcia is entertaining, but I'd much rather see him fight, a Lomachenko or a Teofimo Lopez. But Davis is on the cusp. He's looking outside of my list, and he could potentially get in at some point if he fights any of those guys.